Welcome to the I Care About Books podcast. I am so excited to be joined by two of my favorite people at Book Notification, Graham McGaw, the founder of Book Notification, and Vince, our entertainment editor. Hopefully we'll be joined by my cousin Angela, who is a librarian from Ottawa, Ontario, but she is currently deployed overseas. So we are at her mercy. If she is able to join us, she'll join us partway through. But till then, it'll be the three of us to discuss this week's book for the book club. Now, it was picked by Graham. And before we even get into dissecting this book, I do want to make sure that I'm saying that you're going to hear spoilers on this podcast. If you haven't read the book yet and you're hoping to, make sure you read that and then come on back and join us. And second to that, we also might have a word or two that may not be for children. So just making sure that we're letting you know that we do, if it's appropriate, use some colorful language, some pirate language on this podcast. So that all being said, Graham, I'm going to let you pull apart this book. Tell us about Mind's Eye by Douglas E. Richards and why you picked this book.
Well, I picked this book because I've read 3 books by Douglas E. Richards before. I consider them fantastic. He writes what I believe is believable sci-fi, where he takes situations such as this, where someone wakes up and they've got, which is what happens in this book. The guy wakes up in a dumpster. He can't remember anything, but he's got ESP, and he can also read people's thoughts. He can also surf the internet via his eyes and stuff like that, and via his brain, I should say. And the way I picked it, because we haven't had many sci-fi books recently, and I feel like this is, believable sci-fi, stuff like Blake Crouch, that type of thing, where even though it's very futuristic, it's near future, and the authors, they would present it in a way where you can believe this is happening. And it is kind of neat reading this book based on that, because this was written back in 2013, and AI was not a thing then and all that. And then he's got these huge elements of AI in that book. So in that sense, it's cool to read that type of thing and actually be able to believe it. For the book itself, I absolutely love the premise. It reminded me of one of the best movies of all time, What Women Want, starring Mel Gibson, everyone's favorite actor. Love the premise, love the concept. Generally, I enjoyed the story. It had enough good twists and turns that kept me reading. It falls in that kind of more beach read category. He didn't go overboard explaining the sci-fi. Like I said, very accessible type of sci-fi. Liked all that. Didn't like a lot of other things. There was some enormous plot contrivances, like the fact that Nick just happened to jump into the one meet up with Megan, the one person really whose mind he couldn't read. The odds of that were just stupid, for lack of a better word. The characters were quite thin. The final reveal was absolutely horrific, that they were Islamic terrorists. That was just, massive roll eyes, especially when it was written. If it was written in 2006, 2007, you could see that. But in 2013, it's like, come on, dude, it's been long enough now. And then the writing around women and sex was like he was some sex-starved teenager. It was horrendous, and as someone who's read 3 of his other books, and I have no idea what the hell happened there. But yes, I'm very conflicted. As you can tell, I'm very passionate about this author, and it sucks when it's fine when there's flaws, but there's some massive flaws in this book.
Okay, wow. I actually I'm a little surprised how much the juxtaposition for you to have loved the premise, loved the author, not a huge fan of the book. That was wow. I didn't really expect that from you, Graham. How about you, Vince? What did you think of the book?
I thought it was horrible. I almost okay, this is a little behind the scenes. Like, we were supposed to do this about 2 weeks ago.
Right.
If we'd done it 2 weeks ago, I wouldn't have finished.
Wow.
So I got that. So we delayed it for a week, and then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try to finish. And then I was maybe 50% in, and I was like, I don't want to finish this. And then we delayed again, and I was like, okay, I got another week to finish. And I got to about the point that Graham just recognized with the jihad and Sharia law and I just didn't finish. I was just like, you know what, I've heard enough. I knew where this was going. This book is for guys who retweet Elon Musk. This book is for guys who believe that AI chat girlfriend has their best interests at heart. This is Michael Crichton for stupids, in my opinion. I did not like this book.
Don't let us hold you back, Vince. How you feel about this book? For me, so one, I can see how. So this is the start of the Nick Hall series, and I can 1000% right off the hop tell you that I understand how this ended up becoming a series of books, because those who will enjoy this book will like it a lot. It did have action, it did have, suspense, it did have all of those pieces that makes up a thriller. Whether or not it was told super well or the plot was perfect, it was certainly a book that paced itself in a way that I can see how it would end up becoming a series. And it certainly follows a sort of James Patterson formula where, guy goes into room, sees beautiful woman, dodges bullet ricochets, guy brings down bad guy, girl goes, oh my God. So there was a little bit of formula in that. And that's only some James Patterson books. James Patterson, I love you if you're listening. I love your books. Don't stop. So there was some of that. However, for me, what really stood out, I really did, I get a real kick out of sci-fi stuff like this, where to think like Douglas E. Richards was thinking about this in the years prior to releasing this in 2013, the idea of implanting somebody's brain with the ability to use their thoughts to navigate the web and to listen to other people's thoughts and teleport, like all that stuff. I always find that stuff really fascinating. For me, I couldn't handle the dialogue. The dialogue, it's a very dialogue forward book. There was a lot of speaking in this book, and a lot of the things the characters were saying to one another, I could not imagine people actually saying in their real voice in real time while they're talking to another real person. It sounded very contrived, and I just didn't think it sounded super believable. But I'm going to jump back to Graham's point real quick. Graham, when you were talking about the women in this novel, and how convenient it was for Nick to have stumbled onto the office of a woman who couldn't read his thoughts, and she inevitably becomes his love interest. No girl will do that. I don't care if you're a 27-year-old graphic designer, moved here from LA all by yourself, has no friends. If a dude bursts into your office and says, I can read your mind, you're not going to care that he guessed your favorite ice cream flavor.
And
that's
you actually did,
of validity.
And you did say when you were talking about how it's James Patterson style, you mentioned that he jumps in, saves this beautiful girl from gun wielding maniacs. But one thing I would like to point out is she wasn't that beautiful. He made sure to mention that she was not that good looking, which he actually brought up.
I actually have it pulled up right here.
Excellent.
She could best be described as cute, but not beautiful. The type who could end up being appealing to a man or not so much at all, depending on if her personality enhanced her appearance or detracted from it, which is a very normal way to talk about your love interest, I think.
Did you just quote Shakespeare? That's what it sounded like, Isn't that from Romeo and Juliet?
Romeo also referred to Juliet as a Neanderthal. I just want you to know. That's how he lured her from the Capulets, was by calling her a Neanderthal. But Graham, I think you were absolutely bang on that. That is very strange, and you're not wrong about it being 2013 when this book was written, and you would hope that by then male writers would have at least come down, come back to a level that, more people would find appealing in terms of the way that they write love interests and the way that sort of unfolds. So you're not wrong there, in my opinion. And no, I don't think if Megan was a real life girl, would she have been like, okay, let's help this weird fugitive guy who smells like dumpster within, 5 minutes. So speaking of Megan and Nick Hall himself, let's talk about the character development in the story, because part of that development is what caused Vince to no longer want to read the book. But what did you think about all the various characters in this story, from Alex to Heather to even, you know, our surprise twist in the middle of the book?
I'm sorry, is this to me?
It's to Graham. We'll start with Graham.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, the characters were very surface level, you know. There wasn't a lot of development, but in this type of book, that's not too bad, I would say, right? Like, I don't hold. I was looking at reviews after, and a lot of people were complaining about character development and so on, but I did feel that for the most part, the side characters like Alex and stuff like that, he established who they are. You know, for example, Alex was this geeky, kind of scrawny sci-fi nerd, you know, a science nerd, but he was a genius, and he kind of, I mean, again, the only character development with him was that ludicrous relationship he had with his assistant, where it was just, oh my, like, as I said, it pains me talking about this book in some ways, because, as I said, I did enjoy the story and stuff, and I love this writer, and I just can't get away from the writing with the room. So anyway, back to your question, I'm trying to put that in the back of my mind. There was the character development was very surface level. There wasn't that much to it. Like, I was hoping they were trying to excuse it. Like Nick, you know, like I said, he was a misogynist, chauvinistic, whatever you want to describe him as, with women, the way he was talking about them. But then it comes up and he gets his memories back that he was always had that ego, you know. So I thought, okay, maybe that's part of the character writing instead of actually the author writing it, and he's going to, you know, explain it, and he's going to have like a redemption arc and things like that. But he just didn't. There was nothing there. It's just, oh, he used to be an ass, and he was engaged to this woman who he never really loved, and she was hotter than Megan, by the way. Don't forget that part, because he made sure to mention that.
Points for Alicia. Points for Alicia.
Yeah, so yeah, it was, like I said, for the most part, the characters were general surface level. There wasn't much to them, but he established them pretty well immediately. As soon as a character was introduced, he established who they were, and that was fine. I was okay with that for this type of book.
All right, okay. Now over to you, Vince. So leading up to the twist that caused you to be like, that's enough, what were for you, long before the twist, as you were getting to a point where the twist happened to become the straw that broke the camel's back? So what was taking you away from this story as you were chugging along before you finally gave up?
I think it would be like, kind of to piggyback on what Graham was saying, like, this guy can read minds, and then he can go on the internet and look up your entire history. And then he meets Alex, and he's like, I've read your mind. I can tell you're a really great guy. And then he meets the guy from the army. I've read your mind. I can tell you're a great guy. I know you. I agree with you. I agree with what you think, but I can't let you kill me or whatever. Like everyone, he reads their mind. He's like, hey, I can tell you're a great guy. But then he's like, oh, I got to get these thoughts out of my head. So many people have nasty thoughts. It hurts me to live with all these nasty thoughts that people are thinking. It's just like, it's kind of convenient, just like how every single person he met was the greatest guy ever and a hero, and then everyone on the other side was like pure evil. Just absolutely like Dr. Evil would be like, all right, that's a bit much, you know. Like Skeletor would be like, that's a bit much. Like, settle down. You don't have to be that evil. You don't have to explain your whole plan. Yes, I killed everyone on the boat to do experiments on them. Like, it was just, everything was just like so convenient like that, where it was just like more plot driven, people making choices for the plot more than for themselves, I guess.
Well, I'm glad you put it that way, because it took a really long time before Alex had gotten a hold of Nick to be like, hey, here's what's wrong with you. So we spent a very big portion of part one of the book of him just sort of, you know, milling around life, not understanding anything that's going on with all of these weird things that are happening. Oh, there she is. Angela, welcome.
Nice.
Thank you so much for joining us. Angela, my cousin, who is librarian from Ottawa, who is joining us right now. She's on deployment. Angela, you're turned this way on us, darling. But I do want to ask you what you thought of Mind's Eye by Douglas E. Richards.
Did everyone already say what they think and I've missed it?
Yeah, 10 out of 10 across the board, pretty much. It's Vince's favorite book of all times.
Okay, well that's great. Yeah, I think the ending was a twist I didn't really expect, but I definitely enjoyed it. I would give it. Are we doing ratings already?
No.
No.
Why don't we, just for fun, Graham, why don't we give Vince the floor and see what Angela thinks of Vince's opinion of this book?
Yes, go for it, Vince.
Yeah, Vince.
What else can be said? I thought it was pretty sexist, pretty jingoistic. I thought it was poorly written. I thought it had bad characters. I thought it's Michael Crichton for stupid people. I thought that the power to search the internet with your mind was never used in a way that you couldn't just do on your phone. Yeah, I thought that 4 books in this series proves there's like something wrong with the world that we need to fix. Yeah, I don't know. That's just a few thoughts.
There are more of these.
I just love how unfiltered you are, Vince. Like, I just love this so much. Angela, hearing what Vince had to say about the book, do you agree with him in various ways? Because Vince also confessed to us that if we hadn't rescheduled the podcast by a couple of weeks, he wouldn't have even finished it.
I mean, I don't know if I would call it sexist. What was passing through my head when the two women were talking about, their, I guess we'll call them love lives for lack of a better word. It just kind of crossed my mind. I'm like, did this author ever, meet a woman? Like, this is not how women talk about sex. Like, oh, there's so much going on in the world. I need to mate. That was a definite weird moment.
I absolutely shared your sentiment on this as well, because I was saying earlier that the dialogue was what really took me out of the book. Like, I liked the premise. I liked how, the sci-fi aspect to it, but the way the characters spoke, specifically the women, was to me, it was very unrealistic.
Absolutely. And just, some of the things that he was trying to get the women to do, getting the woman character to attack someone with the lamp, and this wouldn't work at all. Like, so. But like overall, I found it enjoyable anyway. Like, it didn't throw me off because that's typically how sci-fi is. You're like, it has to be relatively plausible. And you're like, okay, fine. Like, I'm gonna go back in time because I'm gonna turn myself into a fax machine and fax myself to the past. You're like, good enough. Like, you had a reason, so we'll go with that. But it was just at the end when they turned out to be jihadists. I'm like, I don't buy that as a rationale for what's happening right now.
Yeah, my issue with that was like, that might fly in 2005 and 2006, but he wrote it 2013. The world had already changed a fair bit by then, so it was kind of weird. And yeah, like I said, Kayle's issue with the dialogue. I was saying earlier that he's one of my favorite authors. I've read 3 of his other books, exceptional. And so, as you did like this one, you definitely should read those ones. But this one, my main issues were, just it was like the writings of a sex-starved teenager at times. It was too much plot contrivance, and there was. I generally liked the concept. I liked the story. I thought it would move fast. And the twists and turns I thought were great. But some of the writing, a lot of the writing it was beyond cringe. So it needs to be a new level below cringe for what this was, especially involving females. The way they were written about it was messed up, is what it was.
I'm always going to go back to him calling her a Neanderthal. Like I'm always going to go
Mhm.
back to that moment in the book because nothing has ever sounded more romantic to me.
Because it became a pet name and it worked, right?
Fabulous. All right, so I'm going to ask each of you a question. Don't think, just come up with the first thing that comes to your mind. Graham, we'll start with you. If you had the power to read people's minds, if this happened to you, what's the first thing you would do?
Well, this is the I Care About Books book club podcast, not book notification after dark. So I will keep my thoughts a little bit more PG. I actually think it's like this. I would probably go the poker route that he went, which I love because I love that type of thing where they do something where like, yes, I would do that. He needed money. He went to play poker. I would do that. I would not want to walk around town and hear all the nasty things people think about me because I'm sure it's lots. So yeah, I would close all that off and I'd go play poker and take down Chris Moneymaker.
Perfect. Vince, over to you. What would you do?
I would probably just I'd probably just read my wife's mind and see what she wants for dinner tonight.
Oh my God.
Okay.
What a lame answer. My gosh.
See, this is the way that we wanted this story written. This is Douglas needed to like confer with Vince first. Angela, over to you. What would you do?
I mean, I think that the realistic answer is just, and it's particularly because of where I'm working right now. I think we're very nice to each other, and I would just love to know what they're actually thinking when I'm consistently asking for favors, and I want to know where that kind of line is where it's like enough already. They're kind of fed up with this and they want to like just tell me to go away, but they can't because we're building partnerships. I want to know what they're really thinking. And so I really do, yeah.
Don't.
Oh yeah.
That's the last thing
I think
want.
this whole diplomatic thing is it's not natural, I think, for military people to be so diplomatic about the way that we're going about this whole conflict. And so I want to know really how much this is just them trying to be nice and how much of them is actually them being nice.
All right. Okay. Well, here's my follow-up to that question. Now think about it real hard. Graham, whose thoughts would you want to read first? Vince, you have to pick someone else. Graham, go.
Oh, the poker players at the table that I'd be playing at.
Really? There's not like an individual in the world whose thoughts you really want to know?
Maybe the server who's serving me my food at the pub, so I know whether to tip 20% or 15% or 0% or 30%. Yeah. But do you mean like an actual celebrity or that type of thing?
Anybody in the world, like if you had the opportunity to read some person's thoughts, who would you pick?
Man, there's some dark people in the world whose thoughts you wouldn't want to read. That's for darn sure. Yeah, I try to think of like I don't really care about any celebrities things, for example, because they're all thoughtful, thoughtless waste of space in their heads. So try to think of someone on a day-to-day basis where I would like to. Yeah, and no, I'll stick with just the poker players at the table I would play that when I clean up. Yes.
You're like the genie with the ultimate cosmic powers, and you've picked the poker players.
I'm making money that way, so
that's
I have very positive things to that. Yeah.
All right, then someone other than your wife. Who would you pick?
I would probably pick Dan Wilson. He's the manager of the Seattle Mariners. I just want to know if there's anything going on up there, if he's just as dumb as his decision making is.
Oh, that would have
I think we know the answer to that one.
Today. All right, Angela, how about you? Is there someone in particular you'd love to know their thoughts?
Yeah, that's called Vladimir Putin. That would really help with my job right now.
Sure. That would make sense. I mean, I'm fascinated by Elon Musk, and I want to know what's inside that guy's thoughts all the time because it seems fascinating, complicated, complex. And there's a reason why the guy is the first trillionaire. And it's not because I want his money, but rather how does his brain work? What is he thinking at all times that has put him in this different stratosphere than most of the other humans on Earth? So I would love to know Elon Musk's thoughts. That's just me. It's just me.
I feel like that's something that I do get it, but you would regret it after like 5 seconds of being in there. You'd be like, oh, I did not want to think of that. But
yeah, I only want a 10-minute hall pass, and then I'm like, I'm good now.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah.
I did also find though that with this book, did anybody see Minority Report?
It's been a while.
Yes, yes.
Right. So the idea that you could be arrested for thinking about committing a crime. And that was, really the premise of that entire movie was that if you were somebody who was susceptible and they determined on what scale you could actually go through with these horrible thoughts, it sort of felt like the precursor to that, right? Like when they were talking about trying to utilize Nick as this guinea pig to see how far they could take this technology and where they could kind of go with it, that seems like it would be the blueprint or software for something like Minority Report. What do you think of that, Vince?
We're working on that in the US right now.
Oh, good.
Thought crimes. Yeah, we're working on it.
What?
He's kidding.
As a Canadian,
We're working on arresting people for thought crimes in the US.
Americans.
I mean, Minority Report. If Douglas Richards could have stole a little bit more from that, this would have been a better book, I think.
Ooh, hey-o, Graham,
because that's an interesting story.
When was that movie released? That was 2002. Yeah, I don't think he took it from that. Like, this was all. I'm not gonna say it was original ideas, but it's a tried and true concept. But anyway, sorry, Kia, what is the question exactly?
The question is that did you find that what Douglas E. Richards is proposing, that we could have technology implanted into people's minds that would give people the capacity to be able to either read other people's minds or use it as a weapon in military or whatever? Do you feel like that is sort of the premise or the software behind some of the other really great science fiction novels, or do you think it would fit in somewhere?
So yes, that's definitely a common. I don't like the word trope, but that is definitely a common trope within various sci-fi and all that things. And he actually, in acknowledgements, he does mention Asimov. I think it was Asimov wrote a story very similar to this and things like this. That is something that has gone through time. And in the acknowledgements too, he does also link to some of the news articles he referenced in it are actually true. Like back in 2009, Intel did start creating this type of chip and stuff like that, so it's a whole big realism thing. So there is a lot of actual fact beyond all that thing, everything so much of the stuff he referenced is actually true, the things they're working on and so on, so.
Angela, I can imagine from a military standpoint, a premise like that seems awfully dangerous.
Well, I mean, I think Vince said, there's nothing that they really read with their minds that they couldn't have looked up on their phone. And I mean, it's really about being polite in conversation, right? So like people, instead of surreptitiously looking at their phone or maybe their watch, they're just looking into the sky and then finding the answer there. It's a different direction your eyeballs are looking, but it's not something that's vastly different than what we have, at hand already. And so I don't think that, the only thing that's different is that if you're deploying soldiers, we're not going to be looking for Wi-Fi all the time, right? Like that's really what the exciting part of it all is that you're not going to be like out of Wi-Fi range when you're actually on the field. But other than that, yeah, it's not a different way of thinking when you've got just the aspect of the searching the internet with your mind. Now, reading the enemy's mind, that's a different thing altogether. But if you had soldiers on a battlefield trying to read each other's mind, that's not going to work either, because they're not they're only doing what their masters have told them, right? So they can't really, like, listening to an individual Russian soldier's thoughts isn't going to tell you what their grand strategy is for tomorrow, because that Russian soldier doesn't know.
Well, and in this book, I mean, it's Nick reading everybody's thoughts, but can you imagine if everybody could read everybody's? What would we left to say? Would you even speak anymore? Would you need to?
It's so complicated.
With all these voices in your head sort of simultaneously, that'd be kind of amazing. Let's rate the book, my friends. Graham, out of 10 bells, what are you giving this book? Vince, I'm saving you till the end, just so you know.
I am so conflicted. Let's say one of my favorite authors, like based on the 3 books I've read, I love them. This one, I did love the premise. I did generally enjoy the story, twists and turns, all the issues. And then so going into this podcast, I was flirting between 4 and 6 out of 10. But what Vince said really did hit home with me, where he said how everything is just so convenient. Like, you do get those bad guy explains his whole plan, you know, and explains it right, all those tropes, you know. Then so much more convenience, where it's like, you know, they just happen to have this magical 6G blocker that can block all the networks, so they can't access the internet when they can, and things like that. And yeah, so obviously the whole Megan attacking, you know, taking down these 2 expert military guys with a lamp and that, and be able to shoot through so it pains me to do this, because let's say I love this author, you know, Douglas. If you've stumbled upon this, I'm sorry. I've given the other 3 books 8, 9, and 10 out of 10. This one I'm actually going to go as low as 3 out of 10.
Wow.
You see the startled faces on your co-hosts right now, Graham, because like, this book.
It pains me a lot. Like I said, I was 4, and maybe I went with most 4, but as soon as Vince was going on about how convenient it was, I did start thinking more about how everything about it was so extremely convenient. It was just, and he's not like this. I promise, guys. I promise. He's usually really good.
All right, Angela, over to you, darling. Out of 10 bells.
Yeah, I mean, I still think that up until, okay, there were 2 things I disliked. One was the fact that, you know, it turned out he was a jihadist, and I didn't understand why that would make him act that way, nor why no one knew that about him up till that point. The other thing that was difficult for me to believe was, you know, that they had this rogue US colonel, and, you know, he was trying to kill the guy, and then, yes, then at the end, well, I've had a change of heart, now I'm going to save your life. So, you know, the good guy, bad guy thing with that US colonel didn't really make a ton of sense. But overall, I enjoyed it. Like, I did listen to it as an audiobook as opposed to reading it. And I would find myself looking for things I could be doing while listening to the audiobook, because I wanted to continue to listen to it, right? And so I'm gonna give it 7.
Okay. All right. I'm with you on that, Angela. Like, I listened to the most of the book, and then I finished reading it today as we were getting prepped for the podcast. But I found that I could do other things while I was listening to it, which so it wasn't a complicated book. Like, the science isn't so sciencey that you had to like stop and really pay attention so that it could explain it a little more in depth. Like, I could actually work in the kitchen or on other projects as I was listening to the book and not lose my place. So that was kind of cool. But it was the dialogue for me that drove me crazy. Angela, you weren't here when I was saying to the guys that there was just no way that Megan would have been like, oh, come on in, fugitive. Like, I don't feel the way that the women were written in this book was anywhere near authentic to what a woman's experience, or the way she would speak, or the way her response would have been if a dumpster smelling fugitive who could read her mind burst into her office and was like, please take a bullet in your thigh for me, and then run away with me to a stranger's home. Like,
and why was she shot on the inside of her leg? Because where the guy was standing when he went to shoot her, it would have made way more sense to shoot the outside of her leg, and that There were all those little things, and the reason I gave it such a high rating was because I enjoyed listening to it.
See, I have to give the book, I have to give the book, like, I'll give it a 5 because I really loved, I thought it was so cool, the idea of, you know, a thing in your head, and like, I love that sort of stuff. But just the way the book was written was making me like, and like listening to Megan speak throughout the book was so unrealistic. It was baffling to me. And even some of the very cringy dialogue between when the colonel was trying to explain to like the 4 of them at the end of the book, and he's like, now this will be a secret between the 5 of us and you'll get a raise. And I'm like, no one talks like this. Like, nobody actually uses language like this. So that to me was really a detraction, because I appreciate when like Beartooth, I thought was excellent in dialogue. Like, I really felt like you could understand that this was an exchange that these 2 brothers would have had. But whereas in this book, it was so cringy. It was like a Michael Bay movie. I was like, no, thank you.
That's a good that is a good analogy, because it is that type of. If I said that's why, Angela, I'm with you, and where I love, if I listened to, I probably would have had a different opinion too, because I love those types of books where you find excuses to listen to, you can't stop listening to, and it did do that job. What Claire did say earlier, that it reminded you of James Patterson, and in the way where he keeps you reading, you know, every chapter ends, and it keeps you, you know, it keeps you going, stuff like that. So it has that definite appeal to it, and like I said, his other books, you should read them. You'll like them a lot better.
5 bells for me, and now I'm very excited to throw this to our last, but certainly not least. Vince, this might be the lowest score you've ever given a book on the I Care About Books podcast. I don't even know what it is, but I can already tell you that much. Go ahead, Vince. Out of 10 bells.
I mean, this might be the lowest score that I've like ever given a book, honestly. And it's not like, it brings me no joy. Like, if I read a book, I want it to be good. I want to enjoy myself. I want to gain something from it. And I just don't think that I did at all with this one. One thing that I read another review, and they said this, and it's like really stuck with me, which is, you know, the big twist is that Cameron Fife, or whatever his name is, ends up being an American-born jihadist named Hassan Ahmed Abdullah. And then the Ed Cohen, his bodyguard or whatever, that's his brother, Rashid. Now, I'm not saying like every book needs to like tell me what a guy looks like and tell me their race and where they're from. But with like a twist like that, like the way, like you could have never said that he was, I don't know. It seems to me that it would be someone with brown skin based on those names, based on all the people in the world with that name. 99.9% of them have brown skin. And it's just like, it's so cheap, I think. It's so cheap to be like, oh yeah, this guy that you knew this whole time that was helping, he's actually this. And that's just, it's offensive to me. So
how would you have felt if this had been like an ambiguous international terrorist? Like with no sort of race or culture sort of associated with them? Was it
it would have been fine. I mean, it would have been different. It would have been fine. Like the other bad guy, that the other guy from the corporation, doesn't he say like, yeah, I was experimenting on the people on the boat and I killed them all? Like he says that to Megan, right? I believe. Remember when they opened the door and then Ed Cohen,
right?
But whatever, he like when that guy's explaining his villain origin story, it's like, that's bad enough. You know,
right.
that's to experiment on people and just kill them when you're done with them. That's evil enough. But he wanted to like one up it with this way. But anyway, sorry, I'm rambling, but I'm
No,
going
you're
one.
not.
I'm going
I'm
one.
very interested in this, and I appreciate that a lot because I think you're not wrong. I think that there is a lot of phobia right now in the world that doesn't need to be pushed any harder. And Vince, you did bring up a good point. This book came out 2 years after 9/11. So maybe that twist
No,
didn't
12
do it.
years.
It came
12 years.
2013. Yeah. If it came out 2 years after 9/11, I could completely understand. That's what I said. I could completely understand that because that's where a lot of the books were back then. They immediately were like, Muslims are the enemy, like they're
Right.
terrorists, and everyone bought into it. This one, it came out like 11 years after, I guess, 12 years. Yeah, 12 years. So it's like the world had moved on quite a bit by then.
Oh, I see
so
what you're saying. Yes. No,
yeah.
I see what you're saying. And so that sort of phobia, like, what are we doing here? Like, we don't need to keep standing on this altar. Like, it could have been bad enough that the guy who this mastermind was just a bad guy. He didn't necessarily need to be attached to any culture. Is that kind of where we're going with that, Vince? Is like what you're trying to say?
Yeah, I think that Richard just wanted like this twist, where it's maximum evil in his mind, and it's just even if I liked everything before that, like this took it so far away from that.
What do you think about that, Angela? Do you think he took it one step too far?
Absolutely, yeah. If he had just done it for money, that would have been so much more believable.
Because
It
he was
didn't seem
just
to tie to, like, why would it be a religious battle for, the ability to read minds? Like, there was no connection. And even the small things where you'd say, "Oh, yes, I'm a Muslim, but I'm not going to pray." So then they will know that if I were to pray, they would know I was Muslim. So I'm not going to pray. It's like, but then are you really Muslim? So it just kept throwing me off.
Yeah, I think that all makes sense. So, Vince, what is out of 10 bells? What do you think?
I'm going with just a 1.
You're actually going to give us something.
A 1, yeah.
Wow. I was expecting
There's
you were gonna
probably
be like,
one sentence
"Minus
I enjoyed.
4."
So that makes it the second lowest rated book on the Book Notification I Care About Books podcast after The Sex Lives of Cannibals by J. Martin Troost. So we are on a good run right now of the 2 lowest rated books in the history of but hey, in the bright side, it was better than last month's book. So we're going upwards. Slow, we're going upwards.
Let's go around the circle one more time for everybody's out of bells rating, and then I'm going to throw it over to Vince for next month's book. Okay, Graham, out of 10 bells for Mind's Eye by Douglas E. Richards. Go.
3.
Angela, over to you. Out of 10 bells.
7.
I gave it a 5. And Vince?
A 1.
A 1. What is that an average rating of, Graham? We got that pulled up there already?
4. I used my internet calculator eyes to ESP to calculate that.
All right, Vince. So next month, you're in the hot seat now to pick out our book for next month. We've had 2 books in a row that folks haven't been super enjoying. So let's see what you come up with.
Okay, so I'm going with what I assume is a safe pick. As part of my job at Book Notification, I monitor New York Times bestsellers list, and I know Graham has heard from people in real life who love this. It's called Theo of Golden by Alan Levy. It's like been on the New York Times bestselling list for like a year. It's extremely popular, word of mouth. It's about a mysterious stranger named Theo who arrives in Golden and begins buying portraits from a coffee house, returning them to their subjects while weaving stories and changing lives. So
Awesome.
If that's not good, I don't know what's good.
Sounds good. Anybody here already read it?
No, you haven't. That's good. Does Theo have ESP? Do you know?
He does not have ESP.
Oh man, no.
Sorry to spoil it for you.
I spend way too much time in commercial media because every time they said ESP in this book, Graham, all I could think about was Mean Girls when Karen is like, "I have ESPN." And I was like, no, it's ESP is the real way of saying it, Care. Like, my God. Dean Golden, that sounds awesome. So that is what we are going to be reading next month on the I Care About Books podcast. This is a really fun book club that we have created and have been working on together as a group for over a year. Can you believe that? This was episode 13, which is very, very cool. You can read the book, follow along on the podcast, even suggest us a book for our book club at care@booknotification.com. As always, a big thank you to my fellow guests, Graham McGaw, founder of Book Notification, Vince, our entertainment editor, and my cousin Angela, who is a librarian from Ottawa, Ontario. Thanks so much to each and every one of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Make sure you are following along with booknotification.com. Sign up, subscribe, and get notified. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Yeah.